So welcome back to my channel. It has been too long since I shot a video. Today's video I'm going to talk about COVID-19 and how it could be causing you some trauma, symptoms of trauma, or maybe you are a trauma survivor and you've maybe done some work and you're noticing some of your behaviors that maybe you thought you had stopped doing, you are starting to realize you're doing them again. So today I just wanted to talk a little bit about how trauma and how it relates to COVID-19. What you can do if you are someone who is struggling right now. Now I know many of us are worried about this virus, not because of the being ill or worrying about dying, things like that, but also the short term and also the long term consequences of not being able to work or trying to work from home while you have children, not being able to find, care, things like that. How it all is kind of impacting all of us right now. A lot of these changes, of course, are making us feel more stressed out, but also just having a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety about present as well as our future. Now, you all know how much I love talking about the brain and trauma and attachment and all of that stuff on this channel, but it's even more noticeable now with our stress response systems being a little bit more activated. Again, we just don't really know what's going on. We get some information here or there, but there just is a lot of anxiety that's happening right now. And with this increase in anxiety, right, is an increase in our stress response systems. And for those who are new to the channel, the stress response system is what we know as our fight, flight, freeze response. So our bodies, our brains sense some type of threat. And again, this is a subjective experience based off of our own past experiences, our own physiology. When our body senses that threat, then certain hormones get released in our body that start to shut down our top or our cortex, our critical functioning. That piece kind of gets shut down, and the parts that are more related to our survival, so stuff more related in our brain stem, right, our heart rate, metabolism, respiration, all of these things start to increase as we prepare to self-protect. So to break it down just a little bit further, fight and our flight responses are what we call mobilizing responses. This means we're kind of geared towards some type of action, right? So we might feel more adrenaline. We might start to feel an urge to kind of move towards something or move away from something. We kind of get laser focused. Our heart rate starts to increase, right? Blood starts pumping. We're getting ready to fight, or to flee, to go, right? That's why it's called mobilizing. We're preparing our bodies for some type of action. And then the converse is more of a freeze response. This can happen when you're feeling really overwhelmed and you can't really decide. And this is not like again, cortex is shut down. So this is more of a impulse, right? Can't really decide what's the best method to go. So you kind of get stuck. Or if it's, your body deems, like I'm not fast enough to run, I'm not big enough to fight. If I just kind of collapse and die, like they call it playing dead, right? In the animal kingdom, they're like playing dead. Your heart rate starts to actually slow down, breathing slows down, right? This is where you get some of that dissociation as well, right? Just endorphins start flooding the system, and it starts kind of preparing your body for the assault, basically, for the pain of what's going to come. So that's typical kind of response. Again, the stress response system, the way it gets activated is really based on a person's individual experience. And we can notice our activation levels, right, when we start to kind of feel more, for lack of a better word, more agitated, or we start to shut down. We kind of go through this on a low level throughout our day, and kind of a typical kind of like a typical, not crisis oriented time frame. But in this period, you might find yourself having more of those experiences, or feel like those experiences are also more heightened. And it makes sense for the time that we're in right now, where we just really don't know what's going to come next. And that for a lot of folks, they're hurting right now in the present. When we are activated and we are in these lower levels of our brain functioning, where survival is kind of key, right? That's what our brain is focusing on. Cortex is kind of shut off, so critical thinking, problem solving, long-term planning. A lot of that is kind of disrupted in those moments, especially when you're highly aroused or highly activated. This can often lead to, behaviors that are self-protective, but can also be a little bit what we call like irrational, because you're not really, there's no real, there's a little bit of forethought on it, but it really is kind of, you feel this certain way and you're trying to alleviate this discomfort by acting in a certain way. So for some folks that is, going out, buying all the toilet paper, all the paper towels, just stocking up. And that could be part of, that is immobilizing action, right? You are protecting yourself by going and trying to take care of things, because if you don't have a job or you don't know where money's coming from right now, you have money, so you want to make sure all your basics are taken care of. You don't want to run out of something, and so it makes logical sense, except that by you being the person who's buying up all the toilet paper or what have you, you're now preventing other people from taking, buying toilet paper or getting paper towels or whatever it is. So you are protecting yourself and, obviously your family, but whereas like your cortex might jump in and be like, my family only really goes through like 10 rolls in a month, so I don't really need to buy 300 rolls. You're thinking, oh no, but I need right now and people are going to buy it. It's like a panicky feeling that you're acting on, and then you're feeling better because you've now like bought all these things. Now I just use that as a very simplistic example because that's the thing that is happening most often and is stressing most people out, is not being able to have kind of their own basics and their own necessities. But that's just kind of an example of like that mobilizing action. Whereas other people it's too overwhelming to think about it, and it's too overwhelming to hear, and so they're kind of shutting down, they're isolating. They're not, and yes, we're all on shelter and self-isolation. Those of us who are not essential workers, sorry, I have my own feelings about that, but point being is that if a lot of people are reaching out to loved ones and to family and friends, things like that, and connecting via phone or Zoom or what have you, but other people, like, even that is too much for them, or they don't have that type of support. They're realizing that there's nobody that they feel like they can trust or turn to in this time, and so they're becoming more insular. They're kind of shutting down a little bit more. So that's more immobilization. That's more of kind of, this is too much for me, feeling a little bit stuck as well. Could also be like a flee response. A true freeze would be kind of feeling stuck and not really knowing which direction to turn. So you can move in and out of these states. You're not just like, oh, I'm always a fleer, it doesn't really work like that. It really just kind of depends on the situation and what the trigger is. And so you could, throughout your day, just kind of move in and out of these states, depending on what's triggering you or what's activating you in the moment. So with all this fear that we have, it's no wonder that we kind of have this scarcity mindset, right? This fear of not having enough, fear of things running out, right? And we want to take care of ourselves. We want to take care of our families. We want to try to act, right? We don't want to remain in this feeling of unknown and discomfort. So now that I've kind of talked about problems and symptoms and stress response system and just kind of this whole unknown, I thought I'd just share some tips that maybe you can use to kind of help you during this time to kind of manage some of your own anxieties and your own stress, so that you are not constantly being flooded or stuck in the lower parts of your brain, engaging in behaviors that are not that don't really serve you, or not a true reflection of who you are. So number one, and I think it's probably the most important, is to really limit your social media use. It's hard with being in self-quarantine or shelter or whatever you want to call it, that you want to know what's going on, you want to feel connected, you want to see what's happening out there in the world. But there is just so much misinformation, and B, too much information in general, that you can easily become overwhelmed. And unfortunately, our brains love to kind of see the negative, because it's, again, I've said this in previous videos, we've got kind of these two basic drives, right? The drive for connection, to want to be with other people, and then the drive to protect ourselves, to survive. And so our brains are constantly scanning our environments. It does it on a low level that we don't really notice it unless we have past trauma and we're a little bit more hyper vigilant. But for most of us, our brains are just kind of actively working and noticing what's going on in our environments at all moments of the day, moments in time, just kind of, what's going on, making sure there's nothing out there. But it latches on to things that are potentially going to be a threat. And so when you're seeing things online that are like, oh, this is about COVID, well, you want to know what's going on with COVID because it's affecting your life today. But if it's negative, which most of the articles are, unfortunately, then it's going to start to impact your mental health. You're going to start to worry more. You're going to start to catastrophize. Like, you're going to do all these things because you're reading these articles, and it will, instead of making you feel better, actually end up making you feel worse. And so limiting social media is a great way to kind of avoid too much COVID, or COVID overload, or managing your stress or whatever. Also, people, we also go online because we look for validation, right? We have our own thoughts and our feelings, and maybe we aren't good at expressing that, or we feel like our loved ones who are with us don't feel the same way. So we go online looking for some type of validation for how we're feeling. So we, am I normal? What's going on? And then you see all these people in there, they're sharing how hard their life is, and you may be like, oh my God, I feel that way too. Or you might feel guilty because you have a lot of privilege and you're still struggling. You know what I mean? Like, everybody's struggling in their own way, and I've seen this in different forums, and that's why I'm making a comment on it, is that, even if you have privilege, and we all have our own privileges, our own biases, you could still be struggling because this is a new experience for you. But then you see somebody who's maybe, you're struggling because let's say you're married, you have your kids at home, you're trying to balance work and all that, and you're feeling stressed and you're hating it and you're miserable, but you have a job. And then you feel guilty because there's people that who don't have jobs, and they also still have kids. And so then you read about their stories, right? And so now there's nowhere for you to go with that. You just feel worse. So not only are you feeling bad about, your own routine being disrupted, but now you feel bad about complaining because somebody else's life is worse, so like limiting your social media can kind of help with that, because then you're not completely overloading your system. And when you're overloaded, what do you do? And this is, again, depends on the individual. Some people, it makes them ready to fight, so they're more argumentative. They're gonna get online and argue with people. They're gonna see people out in the world not wearing their masks, and they're gonna side-eye them, or they're gonna yell at them, right? Or they're gonna run away, they're gonna hide, they might, and on the other hand, they might start to shut down, right? It might just be too much. So they're numbing out, they're not feeling anything, right? They're just kind of walking around in a daze. It really just depends. And so you don't want to do that for prolonged periods of time, because that, has negative consequences on your own health. And so just kind of ways you can kind of manage that and notice when you are becoming overloaded, and limit your social media usage. I would recommend kind of replacing that. So if you're, on your phone all the time, maybe reading, you can read a book on your phone. Maybe you can try something where you read for every one article you read where it talks about like death or whatever, you can read 2 articles that talk about, people who have survived or positives about COVID. If you're somebody who just can't abstain from like Googling things or staying off social media, that's something I would suggest. Maybe it's texting somebody, texting a friend, texting a family member, texting coworkers even could, I know that a lot of people, they get a lot of the socialization from work, and so they miss talking to their colleagues. And so outside of kind of doing work projects, maybe you can set up, I don't know, you can email, you can text, you can do like a happy hour. I've seen people, like I have friends in Israel, and they've been on quarantine for a lot longer than we have, and they've done like with their own friends, like friends of mine with their friends there, have had like Zoom meetings. Everybody's like on the camera together, and they've got like their wine and their happy hour, so there's ways that you can go about kind of connecting and being with others without without turning to social media and like turning to strangers, if that makes sense. Tip 2 relates to tip 1, in that it's really about resisting the urge to find out everything you can possibly find out about COVID and what's going to happen. Again, I get the urge, because it makes you feel power, like you have some type of control and power, and I'm somebody who likes control and power, so I sympathize. But there's just so much information out there that my worry is that it just is going to do more harm than good for you, and that you're going to end up again being overloaded, and then what? Now you're just in your stress response system, and you're not happy. You're still miserable. So why add that to your plate? So again, you could try, if you really have a hard time with impulse control, or you feel like you need to know something, maybe you can, okay, 5 minutes, I'll spend 5 minutes on the internet reading articles. Or again, for every one article I read about something negative, I'm going to read 2 positives. If you just like can't stop Googling, and also just stay on, make sure you're looking at like the CDC website or the World Health Organization, who like their website. You're not looking at like, I don't know. I don't consume media like that, so I don't know. Newsweek, I don't know. Articles, the New York Times, I don't know, like articles that are like op-eds, essentially. Like you're looking at actually medical, medical materials, medical journals, stuff from medical professionals. There we go. That's we got there eventually. You're gonna look at things from credited like professional medical websites. You're not gonna just kind of look at people's op-eds or people's opinion pieces and things like that, because again, it's opinion, it's not fact. So you want to look at what like scientific journals and things like that are actual accurate news sources. And if you're just kind of in the mode and you want to read in general, I suggest picking up a book. You can, if you have a library card, lots of libraries actually have Kindles online. Not Kindle, well, you can get a Kindle book that you can borrow from the library and download it onto your Kindle or your phone if you have the Kindle app. And so you can do that and read a book. You could read about a dystopian. I mean, we're kind of living in one. You can also look at and see what's on your bookshelf in your house, and see, maybe reread, like finally get to a book that you've never read before, or you can reread a series. Like I'm personally rereading Game of Thrones, and it's cool because a lot of people who love the series are doing YouTube videos, and they're kind of doing chapter like breakdowns, and so that's another way of kind of passing the time, but also just kind of getting lost in like appropriate dissociation. Like you're kind of controlling that. You're like, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or for me, like I'm overwhelmed, or I'm tired, or I want to read. So you can get lost in something else, and it's still it's still rewarding. It's an appropriate way to kind of manage your time or manage your stress by doing something that you enjoy. If you enjoy reading, and then in the description box below, I'll link some of my favorite people like on YouTube that have been doing rereads. It's really only one. I don't know why I said multiple. Anyway, I'll put some of that stuff in there if you're interested in like Game of Thrones and rereads or whatever. But just in general, what's cool about something like that too, if you're also looking for community, is that because people are doing things like doing rereads, and lots of YouTube, like if you join like a book club, an online book club, or you do a reread or whatever, sometimes they have Facebook groups, and so you can join the Facebook group, and then you can talk with other people about what the love of, for me to be like Game of Thrones. And that's a good way of finding community, and a good use of like using social media, where you're not going to be overwhelmed and you'll still have that connection, because you're staying kind of clear of that COVID. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1. So that would be kind of another little recommendation inside of this tip. Number 3, these are all pretty important, but number 3 is really try to stick to a routine. I know common knowledge or wisdom or suggestions is like, get up at the same time every day, go to bed at the same time. Yes, you can do those things, but I've personally found that it's not necessarily about what time you're waking up and what time you're going to bed, but it's sort of like it's having the same kind of structure. So most of us, like, we get up and like, I'll share my morning, for example. Like I get up, I feed my dog, I go for, I go work out some kind of way. Maybe I go for a walk, or I hit the gym. Obviously not hitting the gym now, but I do some exercise. I come back. I take a shower. I have my breakfast, and I get my bag and I go to work. So it's like the same kind of steps I do every single day, to kind of like start my morning routine. And most of us have things like that. We just kind of get up and do the same thing every day. And so our bodies like that routine. It likes that knowing kind of what's going on, what it's going to do. And if you're spending in this time of kind of crisis and unknown, if you are not engaging in a regular routine, where you're kind of doing the same type of steps, then it's almost like you're compounding an already anxious nervous system. And so try to do something that's regulating, like being in a routine. So maybe you get up again. I still think it's a good idea to try to go to bed and get up at the same time every day. But I mean, if you have a little bit more of a flexible schedule and you can take advantage of maybe getting a little bit more sleep, I would definitely encourage that. But when you get up, don't get up and just rush into doing things, right? Maybe get up and move a little bit slower. Take your time if you can. I know it's, do what you can within your abilities, but you get up and you kind of follow the same type of routine every day. And again, yeah. And that, I think, that should definitely minimize some of the anxiety, and it will help your nervous system just feel a lot calmer. So that would be kind of my recommendation if possible. Definitely try to have a bedtime routine that helps your nervous system calm down, because again, you've got anxiety often times will show up in difficulty falling asleep or difficulty staying asleep. In the day, most of us are very, very productive. So even if we're struggling with anxiety, we have things that we have to kind of stay on top of. And so you might also be noticing that now if you're working from home, you might still have a lot of work to do, but when you're at work, you have your coworkers. It's a different type of space that you're in. And so you are in a more active, alert space. And so that energy is going towards something. But when you're at home, if you're working from home, your energy, is probably, you're not necessarily in that active alert state like you would be at work. You're not calm, but it's still, you're still aroused, but it's more low level. So you might start noticing more anxious thoughts that are coming up during your day. But if you have work that you have to do, you can kind of, again, focus your energy on that. But then at night, when you're trying to rest, that's when the thoughts and stuff are running wild. So trying to do something at night to transition between, and I'm a firm believer in having really good transitions anyway. So, and maybe I'll do a video on how to appropriately transition between activities and managing your anxiety. But in general, the most important would be, I don't know what your bedtime routine is, but maybe an hour before bed, you start preparing your body for going to bed. So again, this is going to be subjective. Only you know what you like and what works for you. But maybe taking a hot shower, maybe, if you're like me, I love being hot. I hate being cold. So if I can snuggle up in a blanket, I just got an electric blanket, which is the best thing ever. But snuggle up in your electric blanket or snuggle up in front of the heater or whatever. Maybe have a small thing of tea, or again, I'm talking about warm things. So I like to be warm. Maybe watching something on TV that's not, something like a comedy, or maybe a drama, but maybe nothing that's too action packed that's gonna kind of brace things up in your body. Maybe it's going for a walk, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's meditation. Whatever it is, you do something an hour before bed that's preparing your body, just calming it down. Maybe that's the time you kind of let your thoughts run wild. Maybe turn off the TV and just let your thoughts come. You can journal. You can, I always tell people get their phone out, get in their voice app and just talk to it. Figure out what it is, but you want to kind of use that time before bed to kind of get the anxious energy out, but do something that's really calming and regulating for your nervous system before you get into bed, and then you go to bed and see if that helps with the sleep. But try to do the same thing every day. 4 kind of relates to what I just said about kind of having a regular routine, but you can create a mindfulness or a meditation practice. This can include, learning the 5 senses grounding exercises, where you name 5 things that you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things that you can smell, 2 things you can hear, 1 thing you can taste. And again, it's you can kind of play around with the senses. So just know that you're activating all of your senses as you're doing it, and you're actually taking in deep breaths and exhaling slowly before you say the next one. You're actually physically like either looking at the thing you're talking about when you talk about outside, or you're I feel my arm, whatever. You're like saying it out loud. You just kind of want to ground yourself, and then maybe you think of some type of, and like the grounding exercises, deep breathing too, which I really like. There's different kinds. I know most people do you inhale 3 and exhale 3, but you can also play around with like you inhale and then you hold it and then you inhale again and then so you can play around with like pausing during the inhales and pausing during the exhales. And then you can also play around with inhale 3, exhale 5. And exhale is the one that's more important because that's the one that's controlling the autonomic nervous system. So it's kind of that's the calming piece. And so drawing out the exhale is really good. And so essentially when you do these types of things, you're settling your nervous system and giving your cortex enough time to come back online, so you can start to do those problem solving things, and you can do that self-talk of like, no, I'm okay, I have this, or or even just noticing, oh wow, I'm really activated right now, I should probably go for a walk, right? So you just want to give your cortex enough time to come online to kind of modulate those lower level functioning, and you can think through your actions as opposed to like, I'm super activated now, I'm just acting on impulse. So that's why like having like knowing grounding exercises, doing deep breathing, things like that, and trying to incorporate that into kind of like your daily practice is really helpful. Number 5, especially now when we are all stuck inside, is so important. It's to move your body. Movement is great. It's one of the best ways to regulate our nervous systems. So you can still go and like walk around. So if you feel comfortable going for like a little walk during the day, if you have a patio, you can step outside, or a balcony or a backyard, like spending some time out in the fresh air. Just getting up and changing room location. So if you're spending all your time in your living room, you can walk and go into your bedroom, right? You can walk around your apartment or your home. You do something. If that's kind of in the walking range of things. There's obviously yoga. Lots of people have yoga videos online. Again, you just kind of want to you dance, move your body. Just move your body. Rocking, if you have a rocking chair or a swing in your house or anything like that, hammock. Spend some time, getting your body up and moving, especially being stuck at home. And if this is not something that you're used to, for people who have like office jobs, they often get up and they walk around, they go outside for a walk. So you can try to, bring some of that stuff that you would do in your office into your work environment. So, you can create that kind of environment in your home if you can, find ways to get up and move your body in your home. And I know like a lot of people it's funny, I have a friend who's been home with her kids, stuck with her kids. So she often puts on, I feel like it's Wii, but she has like her kids doing like dance in the house because they can't go outside. So they're doing the dance on the Wii or whatever that is. And sometimes like she's out there doing it with her husband. So, you can do things like that with your kids. Like if possible, you can take a break. And it's a great bonding time. It doesn't all have to be so horrible, even though it's a difference in routine. You can try to find ways to make it work for you. So, because you're all adjusting, right? So maybe doing some dance or some fun movement with your family, with your kids, your husband, your wife, whatever, your partner, whatever term you prefer to use. For those of us who like to be productive, this number 7 is helpful. Tackle a project. I personally like, especially when I'm overwhelmed, this actually incorporates movement too. I feel the need to organize. So I'll go through and like rearrange things and organize, and I'm kind of visual. I like to see things spread out. And so I'll organize things in a way that I can see them. I'm also someone who likes knitting. So like I've gotten back to a knitting project because I have a little bit more free time. So maybe pick up a hobby, clean, organize. If maybe you're thinking about a side hustle and now you've got some time to kind of plan it out. Learn something, I don't know. I always see ads online about coding or, and I have a friend whose husband essentially taught himself how to code, which is impressive. And there's lots of free stuff. So you can use that time, you can learn something. You can read a new book. You can I mean, you could do anything with your time. It's really up to you. If one way that helps you feel kind of grounded or feel regulated or feel normal is to be productive, go for it. Find something that you can do. Just still be mindful and thoughtful about what's happening in your own body so that you're not using it as a means of escaping, and you're just kind of retreating into your stress response system, if that makes sense. So just kind of manage that, but otherwise, go be productive. And number 7, probably the most important, is to use the internet, the phone, to connect with other people. As I said before, calling your friends, calling your family, doing Zoom, doing FaceTime, all of that's appropriate. But if you're missing your coworkers, reach out. It doesn't have to be anything super, super deep, like, oh, I just miss you so much. You can just, hey, how's your quarantine going? Or, if you guys you're working from home and there's some, people being, we've all been in staff meetings where they're kind of boring and annoying. You can, without your boss even watching, you can, send a little text message, like, how's it going for you? Still be playful, still try to engage with them. Yes, it's a different method. It's a different mode. You're working from home, but you can still interact and you can still engage with other people. You just got to be a little bit creative with it. And see if that works for you, but don't resist the urge to retreat. Obviously, you need to be thoughtful and know what's happening for you, but knowing when you are really overloaded and you need to take some space versus I'm just dissociated, I don't even know what's happening, and I'm retreated, and this is my trauma stuff coming back up, or this is my stress response system coming up. Kind of being able to distinguish that. So there, it can be a fine line and it can be a little bit tough, but I think it's still important to not only reach out, but to also be thoughtful about who you're reaching out to. So not everybody is good to reach out to. Some people make us feel more activated. So if we are feeling really overloaded, the person we might reach out to would be somebody who would be supportive and would help us feel calm and would validate us, but would not make us feel more stressed than we already feel. So just being really thoughtful about who you are engaging with. So those are kind of my 7 tips to kind of help you through COVID, and a little conversation about stress response system and trauma and, and all of that. So I hope you found this video helpful. Comment down below your ideas. What are you doing to kind of stay regulated during this time? What kinds of things are working for you? What have you tried that didn't work, actually? I would love to hear from you. Want you all to also connect with each other. If you're new and haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead, click the subscribe button down below so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. I keep saying my goal is to upload again every week, but we will see how that happens. It's just been, again, I'm an essential worker, so my life has not actually changed. I'm still working and working hard, but things hopefully will change come May, and I'm scaling back a little bit. So hopefully I'll be more available for more videos, but who knows what will happen in the future. We just kind of go with it. But that's all I have for you all today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.